there, I'm Sandy Reese, Chief Encouragement Officer here at Get Fully Funded, where we help small nonprofits learn how to raise the money they need to fully fund their mission. I'm here to help you learn how to master the art and science of fundraising, and I've got a great tip for you in just a moment. But before we get to that, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that the next time we post a really great tip like this one, you're among the first to know. Okay, on to this week's tip.
Starting and running a nonprofit is not the easiest thing to do. As somebody who has started multiple organizations, I can tell you that it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of courage to get an organization up and running. It often, to me, feels like almost like an extension of myself. And I know a lot of founders who feel that way too. Like it's your vision that you've taken from an idea in your head all the way into reality. You've basically given birth to an organization. You've tried to set it up. You've pulled in your friends. You've probably spent some of your own money. You've put your blood, sweat, and tears into it just to bring it to life to make a difference in the world. You know, it's a great thing, and it's something to be very proud of. But there's some craziness that can happen along the way that I want you to pay attention to and be careful of. Things like overworking. It's so easy when you're excited to spend a lot of time working on an organization. Next thing you know, you've created a habit of working all the time. And that can be hard to break. That can be hard to back off of. Now, I bet if you're like me, and I certainly am guilty of that, it's really easy to overextend yourself, especially if you are a people pleaser and you don't like telling people no, or if you think you can do more than you actually can do. I'm really guilty of that as well, of saying, oh, no problem, I'll get that done. And then you find yourself working really long days, and you're working every evening, and you're working on the weekends, and now all of a sudden you have no life because all you're doing is working. That, my friends, is not sustainable. So you have to find a way to, number one, put some boundaries in place. Boundaries are not the easiest thing, but it is really important to put them in place. As a matter of fact, let me share with you a quote that one of my business coaches shared not too long ago, and I thought it was brilliant. She said, wherever there is stress, there's a lack of habits, systems, or boundaries. So if you have stress from your work, there's a lack of habits, systems, and boundaries. And I think boundaries is the first one. And what this means, a boundary is when you say, here's what I will do and here's what I won't do. I'm willing to work really hard during the day, but I will not work after 6 p.m. at night. I will not work on Saturdays. I will not work on Sunday mornings. Whatever those times are when you say, I will do this, but I'm not doing that, that's a boundary. Those can be a little difficult to keep in place. I'll give you an example. Last week, I was supposed to have the whole week off. Now, I go through my calendar at the beginning of the year and I start marking time off because I know as a creative person, as somebody who works really hard, I need time off to recharge my batteries and give my brain a chance to rest and give my body a chance to rest. If you're not doing that, I highly recommend it. Sometimes it's easy to say I'm going to take this whole week off, and sometimes I just mark a Friday off or a Thursday off, whatever. I mark it on my calendar, the team can see it, and then we don't schedule meetings on those days. So last week was supposed to be a whole week off, and you know what happened? There was just so much going on, and there were so many things I was behind on and needed to work on that I wound up with Monday afternoon off, Thursday afternoon off, and all day Friday. That's all I could squeeze out of it. So that was me making a choice between, am I going to hold this boundary hard, or am I going to get this thing done that I told this person that I would get done? And I find that to be very difficult. So what I'm learning from that, in that stress, as a result of a lack of systems, habits, and boundaries, is to say to myself, how am I winding up in that situation in the first place? What's happening that's causing me to be in this where I'm trying to choose between, I want to honor my word to myself to have this day off, or I'm going to keep my word to this person because I told them I would get this thing done. I don't want to be in this situation. So now I have to back up and say, okay, where's the boundary? Where did I break this boundary for myself? And it's usually because I think I'm Superwoman and I can do everything. So I have to really start asking myself, can I really get that done, or do I need to back off a little bit? What can really happen here? Okay, so that's the first thing. And we may as well just kind of follow this through, because if you're living in the chaos, if you're working too much, you got too much going on, one of the smartest things that you can do is put some systems in place. Systems will help you. They will save your life. So let me give you another example from a client that I was talking to. I think this conversation happened last week, maybe week before. So this was an animal shelter, and we said, okay, how do you decide which animals to say yes to that you will take in and what you say no to? And one of the volunteers laughed and said, well, depends on who answers the phone. And I said, no, 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 and no. You got to have a system for that. And the system basically says when the phone rings and it's another organization calling to ask us to take a dog or a cat, here's how we make the decision. And it's pre-thought and it's written down so that whoever answers the phone can flip the book of systems over to that page and say, oh, here's our system for doing that. Systems is what makes you have consistent results in your organization. So think for a minute about Starbucks. I don't care if you like Starbucks or not like Starbucks. You've probably at least seen a Starbucks. And it doesn't matter what city you go into, wherever in the world, if you go in and order a grande vanilla latte with caramel sauce, you are going to get the same drink regardless of which Starbucks you order that in. You know why? Because they have a system. They have a way that they create that drink, and they train people who work there to create those drinks in a very specific way. Imagine how crazy it would be if they made it up on the spot. If you walked into a Starbucks, ordered a drink, and they're like, well, I think I'll make that with cold milk today instead of steamed milk. Like, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be chaos, and people are going to stop going there. So that's one of the reasons why Starbucks is, and most chains are so successful, is because they create a consistent product and an expectation. We know what to expect when we go into Starbucks. You know what to expect in any organization. You need to create systems in your own organization. Even if you're just getting started, even if your programs are not up and running, even if you feel like, meh, everything's working just fine right now, I want you to think about this. It might be working fine right now, but what if you are not the person in that seat? What if you have different volunteers? What if you have different people? Is the system going to still work the same way? That's what I thought. You have to build the system so that it works no matter who is doing it. And that means that even if you just started your nonprofit, you have to think about what this organization is going to look like as it grows, and what needs to be in place now so that when the day comes that you want to step down, it will continue on very successfully without you. Systems are going to lower your stress. They're going to save you time. You actually can automate a lot of things. So for example, if you don't have automated systems for volunteers to go on your website, see what the volunteer opportunities are, fill out an application to volunteer, and get an automatic reply, you need to figure that out, because you don't need to necessarily be talking to every single prospect who wants to sign up to volunteer. You need to have a couple of ways to systematize where and if you can. Now, I'm not saying like strip all the personality and the high touch out of it, but I'm saying find a way to get it done so you get the result that you want without you necessarily having to be the person to do it. All right, so habits, systems, and boundaries are going to help you contain the chaos that can arise when you're building an organization. You also got to get really good at time management and priority management. So you have to figure out, what do you need to put in place so that you always know what's on your plate and it's a reasonable amount of work for you to get done. I think, again, this is another place where a lot of people get in trouble, is they try to cram too much in their day. And I'm real guilty of this as well. My to-do list is always very long, and the available time for me to do things when I'm not in meetings and I'm not with clients, the available time is very small. So a lot of times I'm trying to push a very large square peg into a very small round hole. It doesn't work. So just take it from somebody who has had to figure this out the hard way. One of the best things that you can do is what we call block scheduling. And that's basically taking your to-do list and looking at your calendar for the day and plugging in or blocking off your schedule, blocking off a time for you to work on certain activities. So what this means is you have to be very clear about the most important thing on your to-do list. So you take your to-do list, you prioritize it, you look at the very most important thing, and you figure out how much time that's going to take, and then you look on your calendar, when it makes sense to do that, and you plug it in. You block off your calendar. So you basically are making an appointment with yourself to get that task done. The thing that goes hand in hand with that is you got to also think about, when are you at your best? So are you fresher and more creative in the morning? Are you fresher and more creative at night, in the afternoon, whatever that looks like? And you want to make sure that you plug in those activities that are on your to-do list that require that high level of creative thinking into that time block when you are at your best, okay? And that's how you do time blocking, and that can really help you. And again, you have to really hold that. So if you mark a day off for self-care and somebody says, hey, can you meet this Friday? And you already plan to take Friday off, then you have to say, I would love to meet with you, but I'm sorry, I have a date with myself. I literally did that earlier today. To say, I can't meet with you Friday. I'm taking the day off, but I'm happy to meet with you next week. Here are some times that work. It's about self-discipline. It is about boundaries, habits, and systems. It is about you standing up for yourself, even when you're trying to build a nonprofit, even when you're trying to change the world. Because the truth is, if you burn out, what is going to happen to your organization? Who's going to step in? The organization needs you. The folks in the lives that depend on your organization's services, they need you. You have to be at your best, and you're the only one that can draw the line in the sand around where you spend your time, where you don't spend your time, what you say yes to, what you don't say yes to. So I encourage you to really look at how you're managing your work, managing your life. What are the systems you need to put in place? What are the boundaries that need to be strengthened? And listen, you can put a boundary in place and then cross it and come back and renegotiate that boundary with yourself. So what I don't want you to do is put a boundary in place and say, well, I'm not going to work in the evenings past 7, and then you do it, and then you feel really bad about yourself because you just crossed the line, you just broke the boundary, and then you just completely throw it away because you broke it once. Don't do that. Just think of it as a renegotiation. So you had to work past 7 that one night. Come back to why you set that boundary in the first place. Maybe you want your evenings free so you can spend with your family. Maybe you want your evenings free so that you can do things you love to do. Whatever it is, come back to it. Remind yourself why that's important, renegotiate it, and go forward. Don't toss it all away just because you break it once. You don't need to do that. Does this stuff all really help you raise more money? Yes, it does. You're not going to raise money if you're tired, overworked, and frazzled. You've got to create the habits, systems, and boundaries to put in place so that you do have the creative juice that you need to lead your organization into success, into the future that you want for that organization. All right, if this is helpful, there are more fundraising tips waiting on you over on our blog at getfullyfunded.com/blog. You can also find a lot of videos on our YouTube channel at getfullyfundedtv.com. Happy fundraising, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.